Welcome to Unlocking Real Estate My First Commission, where we dive into real stories, big wins, and early lessons learned from highly successful rookie real estate agents and brokers. This is the series where we explore how real estate transforms lives, one home at a time, by sitting down each week with a new agent or broker who has found incredible success in their first year. Your hosts are instructors and leaders at Colibri Real Estate School, one of the largest real estate educators in the nation, where we focus on helping people like you get started or find continued success in their careers.
Welcome back to another episode of My First Commission. My name's Liam and I have the pleasure of sitting down with Barry Pulver out of North Carolina. Barry, thank you for taking the time to sit down with us here at My First Commission. It is an honor to talk to you today. Barry, before we kind of dive into it, kind of tell us your story. Why did you get into real estate? Obviously, you've got a little bit of an accent that's super familiar for me, but for the agents that are listening to this, talk to us about your story before real estate as well.
So what you're saying is we don't have an accent, but those who are listening may. Exactly. So Long story short, I moved to America in 2010. It was absolutely never the plan, never the divine intervention, but it ended up being that way. 10 years ago to the day, I was in a real estate school, and now I get the pleasure of sitting here with you from a productivity standpoint of running the number one team, network, organization on the planet. And that's the overall rundown.
Yeah, and Barry, you came to America with no kind of dream. So kind of what brought you here? Were you chasing a woman? Was it the opportunity, the land of the free, home of the brave? How were we here?
Yes, and yes, but guilty by number one. So I met a girl, as is commonly the story. As I was at university, we had a mutual friend. I was at University of Nottingham, and she lived in North Carolina. So just so happened that I thought it would be a great idea to uproot life at the age of, I believe, 26, start again completely. And then moving over here, realized that was a pretty terrible choice pretty quickly. So I tell everybody in full-on transparency, I found my faith, I found my career, and my family, and the rest is really history from there. So life again at 26 started in 2011, and here we are, in the tail end of 2025. So not something I planned for. I have business partners, friends all over the world who ask me about moving to America because it is part of their vision, part of their story, their journey of what they want to do in life. And I say, hey, I know I'm here, but that was never my plan initially.
Mm-hmm. And so you said you came over in kind of the 2010, 2011 range. You didn't start real estate for another 4 years. So what made you decide that real estate was the industry that you were going to go into?
So there's two answers to this. Ultimately, how it really started. So my wife and I bought our home just before then. We went through the process. Was not the greatest experience in the world, as I know many people in real estate may have had that experience. And our agent, who was the top agent here in Davidson, North Carolina, where I live, who was a great experience, she said, you should maybe look into getting into real estate. And at that time, I was a property manager. I can't say underpaid because you accept what you are given. In affordable housing and apartment complex. And that was my into the industry, sitting in real estate school. Ultimately, if one always looks at the end plan and maybe the bigger vision as for why, I wanted to change the industry. Now, I understand I've not even been in it full-time 10 years and how ignorant that thought process was. But ultimately, that's exactly where I wanted to go with it. So I was encouraged with my home purchasing scenario to go that way. And because I was loosely in the industry just without a license, I went that way. And as someone that had zero entrepreneurial background, zero entrepreneurial sales experience, it was a dive in at the deep end.
Okay, so you're kind of on the outskirts of the industry, you have this experience, and then the broker said you should get into it. Was there anything about kind of your skill set, your personality that made that person connect the dots and be like, you should actually become an agent?
I would love to ask them at this point because they, I feel I'm the old man at 41 and they're decades ahead of me, kind of the average real estate or realtor age. But I would say how that conversation went and took place and got me thinking about was, well, again, it's funny how the accent always comes into conversation, or
Mm.
there's not a skill set that's just guilty by where we come from. But it was a personality, not even personality, how personable I was, supposedly, not my words, but theirs. I was just very open. I was a people person, and I loved this community, which I still do, is still here in the same community. So I believe from a skill set perspective, it was the fact I was open, community driven, and community focused, and also, just a people person, I guess we would say, in the industry.
Yeah, and if someone's watching this, if they've got all of that, they just need to get an English accent quickly, get a dialect coach, and it'll unlock a load of doors for them, right, Barry?
Yeah, and you're available for that, correct?
Yeah. I'll teach you. See, Barry. I'm from Northampton, so I have a very non-regional accent. But out here, people love it. Whereas you go to England, it's like Northampton, ugh. not great.
Yeah, yeah.
So Barry, you go into it, right? You pick a school. I believe you went to the Superior School of Real Estate in North Carolina. Did you do it in person, online? Kind of what made you pick that school in particular?
Great question. So it's funny now, or at least for me, I reference so many things by time, and COVID coming in and hitting the entire world. It was pre-COVID. So although I was using Zoom on a weekly basis a couple of years prior to that, I had no idea what Zoom was back in 2015. I don't believe then, and I could be corrected, that there was an online option. So I was still full-time employed in my day job. Then in the evenings, yes, and I have nothing but the finest memories. And I actually recommend Superior School, what you guys do now with a different name, but Superior School as the go-to real estate school here locally for me and throughout the US. So I went to Superior School of Real Estate in the evenings. It was and bear in mind now at my old age, 9 p.m. is my bedtime, but I would go to work, then 6 to 9 p.m. I believe, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'd be at a little hotel in Cornelius, North Carolina, there studying with others and really trying to embark upon my entrepreneurial side.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that you say that, right? It's like most people don't start out in real estate as their number one career. A lot of people take the schooling and decide to shift when they're 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years into their career. How did you find balancing your full-time job and having to go to a location, sit down in class, and learn real estate while juggling all of your priorities?
Different phase of life. Now, with 2 kids and being married for over a decade, that would change and that probably would not happen. Then it was perfect. I was at a job I was good at, I was comfortable, I knew the people, I had control. I can't say I didn't care because I was probably too compassionate then, to be fair. But I knew I also had a radio show on the side. So there would be times during my working day as the property manager in the office that, don't hold it against me, but it's just telling the truth. I'd be, organizing that radio show and the notes and the planning. So I just knew. I think it's funny because I don't think I actually knew or could realize at that point, but I think it was kind of the greater or higher calling, if you will, that, I could do it. I had the energy, I had the enthusiasm to try something new, and it was new, schooling, the types of homes, how a brick is made, all of this was new. And I always liked to learn. And maybe from the more formal educational side, I didn't really embrace that maybe as much as I would now. So I feel it was just a perfect timing with everything being too comfortable in a job that I knew wasn't really life or career fulfilling, but the opportunity to see where it leads and try something different was really just something that I had the energy, the passion, and the timing for. So I think for me, I found timing in life and business is everything. And I think at that particular moment of my career, my professional world, it was just the perfect timing. That it was pretty easy, to be honest.
Yeah. So the timing's right. You go to Superior, you get your license. Then what? Did you go to the brokerage with the agent that helped you buy your home? Did you shop around? What was the next step for you?
Yes, and yes, the answer to both actually. So yes, I did. The real estate agent we used here in the market, who was the market leader, I joined her at her company she was with, advertised as, and I feel was super important because you go through schooling and it gets you in the door, but then you only know what you know. And as someone with no sales experience, someone with no entrepreneurial experience, then what? So I did. I joined that company with her, and I balancing 2 jobs as well. I had to figure out the best way to change my mindset. As an employee, it's easy. I tell my sister this in England all the time, funnily enough, who is in a similar property management, block management role in a estate agency. Whether you clock in at 9, you leave at 5, if you do what you're needed to do, or whether you don't do what you're needed to do, chances are you'll still be back at 9 o'clock the following morning. In real estate, commission only. That means if you don't help anybody, you get the result of that. So it was a rude awakening, but also at the exact same time, I call it divine intervention, luck, which was followed by stupidity afterwards. I got my first deal in real estate straight out the gate and straight out the blocks, which I was not expecting.
Tell me more. I hear this a lot, though, by the way, is that they say they get lucky with their first deal. How did yours come about?
So I think if you do the basics, the real estate basics, that will always happen. Not always, but the majority of the time. Now, for me, the exact girl I moved to America for just so happened that her mum was needing to purchase a house. So there I am, disconnected from that whole relationship and life and starting again, yet the mum became my first ever client, which was wonderful. Now, my wife on the other side, because again, I think there's so much in front of the scenes that people see, right? But the funny thing is that my wife has been a business owner in her industry for 20 plus years, the top of it, and an entrepreneur I never thought I was. So that dynamic was not an issue. But I've come to learn in more recent years that she was kind of my inspiration, if you will, and guidance, whether she liked it or not, subliminally for doing this. So I got that deal straight out the gate because as real estate ABC, if you will, the basics is you should share. Don't be a secret agent. Tell people the choice you've made in life, share value with them and how you can help them. So any life, it's almost like, I hate to say it because obviously from a different world, but it's very similar to health insurance. It takes a life-changing event or circumstance for you to be able to change your policy, change your insurance. So real estate is a life-changing event. And if you see that as the opportunity to go through your phone and connect with people and see how they're doing and share that news with them, chances are, from an analytical data standpoint, that somebody in there just so happens to be in the market to buy a home, or they've got a life event where they maybe need to move their home. So for me, that was it. I did not want to be the secret agent that we hear about so often. I was letting people know what I'm doing, and just so happens the timing was right that I had my very first client right there and then.
Yeah, so you say don't be a secret agent. What does that practically look like? Were you just scrolling through your phone book, texting people, sending them a selfie video? Like, talk to me, how did you actually go about letting that person know that you got your license and you were ready to help them buy or sell their home?
If it was me now, yes, absolutely. At the other end of it, I never wanted to do a cold call. I would rather be a secret agent. Again, this is me now looking back, 9, almost 10 years. I'd almost rather be a secret agent because my skin wasn't thick enough. So if I told someone I was doing something and they weren't interested, I'd take it personally. That said, there was an exception list in my head of people who I had a relationship with who I knew would humor me one way or the other, or if there was a genuine interest to do it. So yes, coming from a different space now, I tell people, worst case scenario, much like I was saying about the 9 to 5 job analogy, you do your work, you don't do your work, you're still probably going to be there in the morning. If your life is pretty good outside of work, you can cold call, you can get on your phone and scroll, which is exactly what I tell people to do now. But worst case scenario, you're still hopefully going to wake up in the same settings in the morning. So I have just, a decade for me, I've come, in my opinion, so far. But when I was still that new agent situation then, right, I didn't want to take the complete leap of faith because I didn't want to be rejected, which I know sounds silly now. But again, when you're new to sales, new to entrepreneurship, and you're trying to figure out who you are, your brand, and all the pieces within. So I would I'd make some phone calls to a select group of people that I felt I knew wouldn't subconsciously do too much internal damage to my thin skin, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's funny that you say that because I hear it all the time, right? People, you're taught to use your sphere of influence, right? And then people say the people that are in your sphere of influence may not actually help you, right? You have that kind of social pressure. So you get your first sale, right? How long did that take after you got your license to handing over the keys? How quick was it?
Quick. Retrospectively, it seemed like it happened instantaneously. It probably wasn't. It was weeks within the first month. Okay. And then getting a commission check for I don't recall. Let's just even it out, saying $7,000 in my bank account was a lot. So then my wife has always been able to see the potential in me that I certainly back then couldn't. So she was like, "Oh, this is great. Why don't you, do this full time?" So I did that. And what didn't happen month 2, 3, 4, 5 was that, because
Mhm.
I didn't feel, and this is where I come back into it now. I didn't feel, and this is on me. You always have to take self responsibility. It's always the person in the mirror first and foremost. And probably part of my challenge was asking for maybe help and guidance as well. But I didn't feel I had that mentor to say, "Hey, okay, congrats, deal one, great. How do you leverage that brand, market yourself, and add value through the community to make that number two?" So yeah, it was probably about $7,000. It took place in certainly within the first month. So the first several weeks from having my license and having it active, that was a good. And then the ignorance of then, having a steady, albeit very small paycheck with insurance, which is obviously a big part of life here. Things went very, very different for the next several months from that.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you say that. Like, I talk to people and they have the opposite, right? It takes them months and months and months to get their first one. You have it straight out the gate. You said that you didn't feel like you had that mentor. Can you explain that a little bit? Was it like you picked the wrong brokerage, that it was just on you, that you didn't ask for the help? Kind of what can a new agent learn from your story here?
Yes and yes. Again, I feel back then I probably didn't take enough self responsibility, because I feel, again, if you look at any successful real estate agent, and the definition of success is going to be relative to different individuals of what that looks like. But we always, those of us who take self accountability, and that again can take different forms. If you hold yourself accountable and you have integrity to yourself, which means, if you say you're going to do something, following it up and doing it, it is always the number one thing in the world. For me as well, not negating that responsibility on myself, the company I was with had all the training in the world, but I didn't feel there was a individual, almost like a shadowing, an apprenticeship. Now, I never had the
Mhm.
opportunity when I was younger to be an apprentice, but I feel in an industry like this, you need it. I went through the 79 hours of schooling, which gets you the capability of the fundamentals of knowing the real estate industry, most importantly from a compliance and legal aspect. But it didn't help as much from the, okay, now you're a business owner. Now you don't get paid anything unless you actually follow through on what you say you're going to do, add value to people and help them. So there was that big disconnect. And maybe my understanding, and part of why I said I wanted to change the industry was, you go from A, school, to B, brokerage, to then being in the thick of it. But it's like drinking out of a fire hose unless you have, or unless I felt I had someone who was there, who was a phone call away. And the brokers in charge always are, but they're very, in my opinion, great people, underpaid, heavily responsible for so many people. I just didn't feel one on one that I had what I truly needed. And again, when you're new to something, you don't know what you need until you're already in it. So it was a combination. First, self accountability on me. Yes, there are things I would definitely do differently now. I share with all of our agents things to do differently now. But I think the alignment with what I was expecting brand new in this industry and where I had my license, and nothing against that brokerage at all as well, there just wasn't that direct alignment.
Hmm. Yeah. So you're missing something with the mentorship that you needed at the time. How did you get over that, and how did you get your next couple of deals? Like, you're going through that drought, right? Things may be tough, right? You're not seeing the paycheck. What did you do specifically in your story to turn that around and start the successful career that you've got now?
So it probably took me too long to do. I had a safety net, which, the Cortez analogy, burn the boats and just go forward anyway. I
Mhm.
didn't. I had my wife with her business had had income coming in, which afforded me the opportunity to try this and go. Retrospectively, if we didn't have that, and it's not astronomical by any means, but we live a pretty normal lifestyle, if you will. If we didn't have that, then I probably would just be another statistic of what the 78% of agents that leave the industry in the first 18 or so months. So I just did what I tell people not to do, to be honest. At that brokerage I was with, I joined a team, and that's not telling people to do it, but I was just looking at what everybody else was doing, and I would just try that. And I felt that if they're doing this, they're being successful, then why reinvent the wheel? We hear that a lot. Now, looking back, I did reinvent the wheel and went the other way, and it went very well for me. But I would just do what others were doing. So I would do some open houses, which were fun. I actually just found the flyer from my very first open house in 2016. Had a British flag at the bottom. I
Mhm.
literally found it yesterday. It said, you know, come have a cup of tea with me. So playing on the historical factor, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
So I would do some open houses. Social media dabbled, nothing consistent. Again, this is part of the problem. And then I did get a couple more deals, more so through luck than divine intervention. Again, I believe you make your own luck in life. And then I came to a crossroads. Oh, well, maybe it's not me, maybe it's my surroundings. So I looked at two options. Do I go into commercial real estate or do I go into luxury real estate? And then that was kind of where I took my pause at the first end of the first trimester, if you will.
And tell us about that. Kind of keep going, because
Oh,
eventually you
sure.
now have this brokerage with EXP. But like, how do you actually get there?
Yes, so that is a fair question. I was going to allow a little tease there. So I spoke to different companies at that point, and I decided upon a luxury boutique brokerage, which is in a market about an hour north of me, which I'm still part of that market, called Winston-Salem, North Carolina. There was a luxury brokerage, and the head of that brokerage, the owner, his branding, his confidence, his aura was just on point. So, long story short, I joined that company. We ended up opening an office about, I tell people, it was 104 steps from my front door. And you know, you always think you go to the office, you're going to be there, people will come in, you'll be productive. And it's ironic, you know, later in life, I found that those who are in the office are typically not the ones doing the transactions and the deals. But so I just kind of took a pivot. I felt, you know, I'm sure it is a part on me, but it's probably the company. They're guilty. So I joined this luxury company and rebranded myself, again, leveraging some of the accents and maybe the looks and some of the connections I had into the luxury market. And that was only about a year as well, but it was good. It was fun. The ego was satisfied. I think that's the most important thing. You know, again,
Mhm.
it's all very relative for where we live. So we're in North Carolina, Lake Norman, which is a nice area, you know, the home of NASCAR, but it's not a San Diego. It's not a New York City. It's not a London. So that was an interesting experience because it taught the owner of the company was the company. There was us agents, and he would maybe share some deals with us and share the branding. But I went from this behemoth of the largest, one of the largest real estate companies in the world, and being that vehicle to being the exact opposite, super niche, which I think is extremely important to find out what your focus is and go with it, but also very heavily branded for the individual in the luxury space and tailor made. And I think ultimately, when I joined EXP the summer of 2018, it was almost like a pendulum. You know, in life, you have those swings. I went from here to here. Then the learning I took from both, which I'm forever thankful for, ultimately took me to here and the what I do now. But I found it was very interesting. One of my big learnings as well. You're in school and you'll have people talking to you about focus on your niche and prioritize what's important to you in business. People may be scared of quote luxury real estate and the higher price points. But what I think on the big picture, you know, 30,000 feet looking down, people forget a human being is a human being and a house is still a house made of similar components, you know. And I think that teaching, but the understanding of having the inner confidence, if you truly feel you can offer value and you know what you're doing, I mean, that really propelled me to a very, very inner high level where I could then effectively take my business and just run with it.
Yeah. So you say the pendulum swings the other way. Talk me through kind of the EXP model, why you decided to kind of go for it, and then we can start exploring the journey of kind of how you've grown it to the brokerage that it is today.
Yeah, so it's just funny how stars align sometimes. So effectively, I was doing well at this luxury company. The money was, again, the commissions, the sales were, and obviously the price point was better than what it was before. It afforded me some really good opportunities as well in the luxury auction space, which was really enjoyable. Had a grand opening of our office, again, 104 steps from my front door, invited someone in real estate who I met and interviewed at the very first step. You know, when you should always interview with different people and companies. And I interviewed with him because my wife had a mutual friend who this was one of her clients. And I invited him, you know, because it's been great to keep in contact. How you doing? And I went to a Christmas party the year before I did join. I didn't realize it was at his house, and it was an EXP Realty Christmas party, which is always fun. People are like, what do you mean you're with a different company? So, long story short, I joined EXP at that point in my career for two things. I got my business card, but not at arm's reach. But I built to have better support. Remember, I was talking about that mentorship at the beginning, and that certainly continued through, and to build my own brand. Great thing about company one, it's all about the company, the systems, the name, and the name is what's going to open up doors for me as an agent, as a business. I don't feel that's ever the case. But number two, it's all about the individual and the brand and the niche and the luxury. So I thought, let's see if we can merge the two together. So effectively, the reason I joined EXP was for those two, to have better support, not really knowing what that looked like because I've only had my own personal experience at the two companies prior, but to build my own brand, to build something that, because at this point, I feel I had the understanding, if I'm knocking on the door or you're calling me and you want to interview me or you want me to list your house, you want me. It doesn't matter what company I'm with behind the scenes. That's all for me. It's me, the individual. So I wanted to be more authentic in that approach and market, brand, advertise as me. You know, I sound like this. I look like this. That's not going to change. So let me just put all the pieces together. And from a brokerage component, EXP at that point was the only company that would allow me to do all of the above, but also behind the scenes, which, as you know, where all the magic happens, is give me the support, understanding, training, and culture to really cultivate something different. Coming back to my ego speaking at the very beginning of changing the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you move over to EXP, kind of talk us through kind of that transition from being at the big brokerage at the start to then working for the luxury space, then having to create your own brand, right? How difficult was that? Was there a big ramp up period? Kind of what steps did you take to really create the brokerage that really fits your needs and change the industry into the one that you want it to be?
That's a great question. Now, thankfully, as a company or a brokerage, EXP's come a long way too, because back then it took about 2-3 weeks to onboard and a lot of different challenges and hurdles. But one thing I did have, I had an office I can go to. I had someone who is a phone call away, and I would be taking that time. Again, I didn't have the safety or security. I had to make things happen at this point, and they already were, but I had to make them happen. Of the whole reason I stepped out of corporate America and do something different. So I had the time, again, timing of life as well. I had the opportunity. So I'm like, okay, we're going to sit for a coffee a few days a week. I'm going to invest in myself with resources of time, which is the biggest commodity. We either have time or money. And then I had time. And I would take part in the training, but I would also understand it's not just what I'm learning. I'm also learning from the top agent in California about the thing that they do in their business to get some 150 sales a year. So I was actually taking this, I hate to say it out loud because it sounds really sad, but at this point I was almost taking it seriously. You know, I understood that I had to make this happen. At this point we had a 1-year-old son, and maybe it's that life circumstance again that really makes things click into gear. But I had to do something, and I knew that I could be successful. I knew I'd made this choice for a reason. So I was now understanding that self-accountability piece. I feel I'm like, okay, it is me. If this doesn't work, then maybe I go back to where I don't want to go back to, but where I came from. But I was leaning, and I had that mentor that I was always seeking, that I think everybody should seek, where they were answering my phone. I can come to them with any question, and there's no such thing as a silly question, but they would answer me. They can, going back of how you say what a mentor is, for me, I've made 1,000 mistakes in this industry. If I can save someone, I still need to make some, 990 of them. For me, that's a mentor. Follow someone who's been and gone where you want to go. I had that. I had that local to me. I had that further away from me. I had 7 mentors, all varying parts of success and dotted around. So for me, I took things seriously. I look at what was available to me from a resource standpoint, and I'd be a sponge. If nothing else, ignorantly, I knew I could do good things. I knew I could make a success of this career, but I also knew what I didn't know. So I lent on that vulnerability, and I dived into where I needed to at that point to soak up as much as I could, figure it out in my head in this brand of what I want to be, And then at the same time, yes, I was not afraid of telling people where I was, what I was doing, how I could help them. So I had more of a confidence now of experience of outreach. But the time I was putting the time into really learning and investing. One thing I always struggle with, there were some companies I remember meeting at the beginning of my career. You're a new agent, again, you only know what you know, and you're starting again. But you'd have to sit for 4 to 5 weeks in training, basically not getting paid a thing. And I love on the job training as long as you're not genuinely hurting people and you're adding something of value. So I think it was just putting all of that together with the understanding, which is good, that I needed to make it happen. That was really the beginning of a foundation of really where I've gone to.
Hmm. Yeah, you've talked a few times about like life changes, right? And as someone with two young kids, like I completely get it, right? It lights a fire that you want to kind of build your career and your life around them and provide for them. So you take the leap, you create your brokerage within EXP, and then flash forward to today, right? You've had exceptional growth in the number of agents and the territories that you've been able to kind of open up and expand and help change lives. Talk us through that part of the business, because you've kind of shifted from being mostly a representative, right, that's helping people buy and sell homes, and you've fully shifted from what I can understand into that more mentorship and getting the best out of the agents so they can help people. Kind of talk us through that part of your career now and the direction that you're going in.
Not something I ever signed up for, not something I ever thought was even in the realms of possibility. Again, I joined EXP, this brokerage, for support and for branding. Somehow that's transitioned to what this is. If I press a button here in full transparency, I will share of what that looks like from our team or network. We are currently 1,011 agents in 20 countries, have sold year to date 12,699 homes, which is equates to $4.23 billion worth of homes sold. And I think back to, and the reason I say that, again, much like I feel training is not the what you're learning, it's the who you're learning from. I just like there always to be a validity and authenticity piece behind understanding numbers and data and analytics. So way back when, my mentor here at this company and a personal family friend of mine as well, when I was inviting him to that open house, open house of launching the previous office brokerage, I sat down for coffee with him. I said, "Hey, I don't understand about EXP or what it is and recruiting and growth. I don't understand this, but, and you'll appreciate this, I always like keeping a pulse on the industry. And I saw an article saying that in British estate agency, which is the equivalent of real estate, they were looking at introducing licensing to the industry. Now, bear in mind that hasn't happened, and this was a conversation back in 2015, funnily enough, that I'm like, hey, it's maybe of interest to you. And we just sat down, had a very open, honest conversation about things. He put it back to me and said, well, no, this may actually be of more interest to you. And then we were just talking numbers and industry and life and a good conversation. So that's how things started. And then I joined EXP for the two reasons I mentioned multiple times. But I also understood as a company, and I was a single agent, not a team leader, not a recruiter, none of the above, but I wanted to make an impact and make a difference. So I made the transition to EXP in that summer of 2018, within a couple of months after, and I've never done a conference. I don't know about you, I've never done these conferences. So EXP was having a conference in New Orleans, my goodness. So I didn't really have the money after transition and marketing. Found the hotel furthest away that I could stay at that was the cheapest, and knew I needed to speak to a guy called Jason, who was the CEO of EXP back in 2018, and say, hey, so I found him. We were there. So I'm vegetarian, so I couldn't really appreciate the food, but the wonderful music was there. It was late at night. It was some celebration party. Probably couldn't hear a word I was saying, but I said, hi, Jason, my name's Barry. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina market. I just want to let you know, I know EXP wants to go international. I'm going to be the guy who does it. Kindest, nicest person you'll ever meet. Like I said, he probably couldn't even hear me, shook my hand, and went on away. So then I've never recruited, grown, been part of anything outside of the market center or the company I'm in. So I thought, all right, I've got to figure this out. So long story short, and this is minus several hundreds, if not longer, hours of research and conversations, I found, in my opinion, the guy. If EXP Realty, this US and just in Canada company, was ever going to go international, it would be through this individual. His name's Adam. Has been in the industry in the UK since 1999 and done all sorts of things. So introduced him to the company, to the founder, the owner, the CEO, many conversations aside. And long story short, it ended up that EXP Realty, so it's our 6-year anniversary this week, actually, of launching in the UK, was, not much through me, but thank you so much. So Adam and the team launched 6 years ago, and we were the first ever international expansion outside of North America. And 6 years on, as you could probably attest to, the industry over there is vastly different. Everybody, let's talk about my small salary. Everybody's a salaried employee. There's no self-employment. There's no buyer agency. Average commission is 1%. Night and day difference. But as we're speaking live on this podcast, we are the number one, not self-employed, but we are the number one real estate or estate agency in the UK. So it just goes to show what can happen. But that was a small sampling of what I wanted to do. And I always thought, and this is completely by ignorance again, hey, I love my community. I love Davidson, North Carolina. Anytime I'm on a stage from Australia to England, I always say, hey, my name's Barry, owner of the exceptional brand powered by EXP from Davidson, North Carolina. That's what I do. It's my home. However, wouldn't it be cool, just as a licensed real estate agent in North Carolina, wouldn't it be fun to have some element of business back home, right? Where I'm from, where I lived 26 years, where my family is, and look at us now.
Yeah. It's incredible hearing just the sheer volume of agents and transactions that kind of you've been able to create in just 10 years, right? Where the brand is today. You say that you never anticipated the shift, right? So you go from being this, you said you weren't on a team, right? Now you've built the behemoth that it is. Obviously, our audience is new agents or aspiring agents, right? And you get to see a lot of agents in different stages of their career. If someone is watching this, what are the skill sets and the values that you look for when trying to hire someone, especially a rookie agent within their first year, to your brand and your business?
So that's a phenomenal question. I wish if I was a new agent and I interviewed all these companies, as we all do, I wish I understood the value that I am of more importance to the company than they are to me, and I think with that mindset would be important. But for me, it's a couple of things. I was not, or maybe I was coachable. Maybe I just was seeking different coaching or mentorship that I didn't receive, or I felt I didn't receive. The ability to adapt is always huge in any sales environment. The ability to be a sponge, to want to learn. And when I say be a team player, I don't mean necessarily like use my branding. I just mean being open to brainstorming, strategizing, criticism, positively speaking, not in a negative sense. And I think drive, if I have the drive I have now as a brand new agent, it's funny, I don't think the alignment of what I do now would have happened. So I'm thankful for it. But I think if someone can be open to understanding they know what they know and they don't know what they don't know, being open to wanting to expand their wisdom, their knowledge, their training, their skill set. I think the skill set of being open-minded and coachable is huge. I think the drive and determination that they need to succeed or feel they need to succeed. I think those two, with adaptability, of course. I mean, we look, the market's phenomenal, COVID comes in and the world shuts down. And we launched in the UK, ironically, the end of 2019, and COVID was actually the best thing that, businessly speaking, could have ever happened to us. So I think adaptability is the thing that people don't speak about enough in real estate. I think if you take those three key components of a skill set, there will be absolutely no stopping you with the right alignment with a brokerage and with a mentor and everything behind the scenes to propel you forward. I really feel those are the three key skill sets.
The one thing you said just before that, though, I think is super interesting, especially for agents going through the licensing process. The mindset of going into the conversation, I am more important to the brokerage than they are, right? Can you expand on that kind of thought process and what that actually means for a new agent?
Absolutely. Now, the fundamentals of the business industry and of the industry are very interesting. If one looks at from a business analytics of how companies make their money, how individuals, staff, are salaried within that, so I always advertised when I was with my first brokerage that I was agent number 77,077. I don't know if that was true or not, probably not, but it felt that I would be there, and there were individuals, and God bless them as well, for as long as they can recruit me and others out of school, then there were certain metrics that had to be hit, and a metric is an individual, and we're all individuals, we're all agents, but for us, the agent, it's our livelihood and our lifestyle. So I think it's just understanding of that this is a real thing, and it's the difference between you being me as a licensed agent, being a number, or being a business owner, something that should be cherished. And I can do my own business with my own company if I want to do that, or I could partner it with a different company. But understanding that the true importance for us as licensed agents is on us, and it's not on the company. The company behind the scenes should be helping you and setting you up for success. But again, it always comes back to us, the individual. But it's understanding that it is on us and that we need that right alignment. And I feel that's what I mean by it. That again, any company, if you look at any company, any of the big companies, and we're in a period of real estate right now where there probably will only be 3 or 4 genuine large companies in the next 12 to 18 months, I would say. But it's understanding that even if you're part of a large company, you are of more importance to them than they are to you, because you can pick up and do your own thing. So it's just having that constant reflection of what you're getting from the company. That's much like a client, the level of expectation. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Home Seller, I'm going to sell your home. What do you need? You want to sell your home for $1 million? Well, it's only worth $500,000. Do you want to take it on? Then that's on you. That's not on them. So it's just that constant reflecting of your business, and if there's a true alignment between the two. I always believe you take it further if you can, and you never want to set yourself up for retirement and at the end of your career looking backwards. But as a new agent, again, you just want to get going and get hungry and align with where you feel would help. But if you can just take a step back and pause and figure out what you truly want this, not even business, career to be, and you can reverse engineer the steps back with your mentor and with that company. And I think that ultimately is going to be a really true alignment between the two.
Yeah, I think that's really, really sound advice. And Barry, I know that you got to jump soon. So my last question for you would be, if someone is watching this and they're thinking about getting into real estate, knowing what's going on in the market, right? All the news cycles that are going on, interest rates, what's changing. What advice would you give to them about getting their real estate license from your kind of experience over the past decade and looking ahead?
Ask yourself a couple of questions. Why do you want to get your real estate license? It is the best industry in the world, but it can also be, without the right infrastructure, mentorship, support, guidance behind the scenes, the hardest. So ask yourself why, and who are you doing this for? Are you doing this for you just as a job, as many people are, as kind of a second career? Is this a true passion? Is this something you want to take and create a true business legacy for yourself? Who do you want to do this with? And what do you need? I think it's asking more internal questions of yourself, certainly up front, to have a true understanding of what you feel you're wanting for this. And one thing I don't feel enough agents do with whatever brokerage company they're interviewing, they don't ask the hard questions, and they allow themselves to be asked a question of, as opposed to, one thing I tell everybody, like I've said here, is ask them, the training I hear is wonderful, but who are the agents and how many homes are they selling that's actually doing their training on open houses? How many open houses did they do last year? How many clients did they make through that? What is your expectation of me? How can I hold you accountable? So I feel it's a lot of internal questions first, because until you really have true clarity and definition of maybe who you are, which comes with time, and what you want your business to be like, but until you have that clarity of you, your business, what you want it to look like, you can't really ask the right challenging questions for those who you're contemplating being in that career with. So there's no such thing as a bad question. Ask the hard questions, hold yourself accountable. And for me, the most important thing, if I was to go back 10 years, is look to seek to find that right mentor. They don't even necessarily need to be in your market, but seek someone who you align with, who's been there, done that, of what you want to do. And that could look different from different people. See if they are willing and able, because there's a big difference between the two, to be there for you in whatever capacity you need. And I think if you can find all of that, but it all starts with within, if you can ask those hard questions and constantly monitor where you are as well. One thing I took from my first company and I've adapted now is something called a 411 accountability form. And I highly recommend this for anybody. I have one I'm happy to share as well. Concept is 5-year business plan, broken down to 3 years, broken down to 1 year. There's a tab for every single month. So it's broken down by month. And then the 4 weeks typically of the month is broken down. And everything connects and spirals down and is broken down to keep you accountable as you continue. So it's an overwhelming industry. It is the best industry in the world. But if you do it right with the right people, from firsthand experience, there's absolutely nothing like it.
Barry, that's great advice, and I appreciate you taking the time out today. I know you're a busy guy and you've got a lot of stuff to do. Before we go, if someone is watching this and they do want to kind of follow you, get in touch, where's the best place to find you on social?
So let me just add as well, I don't like social media. I only use it purely for work and it's worked pretty well. So please do that and leverage it. I'm on LinkedIn, very prominent. If you type in my name, I'll be there. Same with Facebook. You can always reach out directly. I have a phone number, which I'll happily share. It's 704-728-2630. I will always be authentic and I want everybody to succeed, no matter where you are in the world, whatever company you are. So if I can ever share a resource, share a value, share a tip, you're listening to a phenomenal podcast here with great people. So if I can ever be of value, just reach out.
Yeah, no, thank you. And if anyone's watching this, take advantage of it. Follow him on social. He does provide a lot of value in his videos as well. So he's definitely a great follow. You could learn a lot from Barry. Barry, appreciate it, mate. I think that's the pod. Thank you very much, guys. See you next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to Unlocking Real Estate, My First Commission. We hope today's stories and insights inspired you to take that next step in your real estate journey. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode, or head over to our channel to see some of the other content we've produced. We'd also love to hear from you. Drop a comment below with your biggest takeaway or a question for our next guest. If you have a recommendation for someone we should interview, please send a note to unlockingrealestate@colibrirealestate.com.